everybody, my name is Joey. Welcome to my channel. I got my Adornable Elements Beads of the Month Club yesterday in the mail, and I was so excited for it because it's actually called Cactus Blossom, but to me I see the beautiful autumnal tones for the season that we're about to go into, and I love it so much. I'm so over this summer heat, and I am so ready for autumn and winter. I can't even tell you. My car registered 105 degrees a few days ago, and it's wreaking havoc with my health on top of that. But I could not decide which of the 6 clubs to get every month from the Beads of the Month Club. So I am rotating the clubs. So it's a surprise. So every month I don't know which club they're going to send me, which bead collection. And this month I got 11 Delica beads. And as I said, it's called Cactus Blossom. I'm going to go through these really quickly, and we're going to do a super easy, super cool little earring. So they are so organized, and I love that very much about this company, that all of your beads, even if you get the Gemstones of the Month Club or Hot and Trendy, which is like new and upcoming bead shapes and finishes, it's such a wonderful monthly collection, and you are saving money off of the retail. And they come like this in these little boxes, and everything is labeled and matches up to your insert, so you see exactly what you're saving, exactly what the cost would be. And I love that organization. I'm an organizing maniac, and I'm in a perpetual state of organizing my beads and supplies, so I just love the way that they do things. And I'm crazy for this bead. This is my favorite bead in the whole collection here, and I've dumped a few out, so I'm going to just pull my dish up here and get really close to the camera and show you, because you'll be seeing these on a needle and in the project we're going to make. But this is a Duracoat galvanized matte berry bead, and if you are not familiar with bead finishes, whenever you can get Duracoat galvanized, it is really wonderful because the finish is like permanent, and so it won't scrape off or flake off or wear off over time. And especially for metallics, oh, Teddy the frog is on my windowsill. I don't know if my microphone usually picks him up. He waits until I press record, and then he sits on the windowsill and talks to me. He's very rude. But anyway, I especially when I'm doing metallic seed beads, I especially like to get the Duracoat galvanized. But even for these really opaque, fully saturated colors, it is wonderful, especially if you're going to do a bead weaving project where you've invested some time. It's really wonderful. So, and they're normally a little bit more expensive, and so you're getting a discount with the Beads of the Month Club. And then the next color is called Copper Pearl Lined Pink Mist. Does that not scream Joey? For those of you that know me a little bit, that is bead perfection in Joey land. And then the next one is called Opaque Mallard Luster. Isn't that gorgeous? That is my second favorite bead. That is really, it is that like duck egg blue. It's neutral. It's between blue and green. I love that color. And then the next one here is Dark Peach Lined Crystal AB. For newer people, AB stands for Aurora Borealis, so you get that shimmer that is reminiscent of the Northern Lights, because it sort of color shifts, changes as as the bead moves. It's quite beautiful in a design. And so while we're here, these are the 3 that I used in my piece. I used this one, I used this one, and I used this one in my piece. Okay. Yes, I was thought about putting this lighter one in the very center of my design, but I did end up going with this one. Okay, the next on the list is a turquoise green lined, again, an AB, a crystal AB. So, I mean, it kind of looks like mermaid glass. This is such a beautiful color. And I love this kind of turquoise because if you're doing a summer jewelry that is with mermaid glass and seashells, it's perfect. It's like tropical water colors. But as you go into autumn, this can transition beautifully into the teals and the autumnal greens. It's a beautiful, like very Very versatile color. And in spring, this looks beautiful with pinks and purples when you're doing like your flower designs and things. And then in the winter, this color looks amazing with red. I love that we have a few shades of a turquoise bead in here because it is just a really versatile color. Okay, up next is this berry lined light topaz. Isn't that gorgeous? That is like the richest, deepest shade of pink. It reminds me of cranberry glass. For those of you that know what it is, it took 18 karat gold dust blown into the glass to achieve the color, that cranberry color. And this seed bead mimics that absolutely beautifully. And then the next one is a transparent sea foam luster. So again, another one of those versatile turquoise family colors. And then this is gorgeous, the matte sea glass green. So this really does look like a tiny little, a tiny little bead that is sea glass. And it's beautiful. It's kind of got that frosted, it's really, really beautiful. And these are Delica beads. These are 11-0 Delicas, if I didn't say. And again, for newer people, if you're confused about what different seed beads are, a Delica is a Japanese seed bead, and it is a teeny tiny little cylinder, like a little tube in the 11-0 size, and they're very uniform. And when you do any kind of stitching with them, they line up beautifully and really give you a perfect shape. So today I'm going to be doing this earring using the square stitch. This is a very, very, very beginner friendly project. If you've never even threaded a needle and thread before, I think you can do this. I created a super simple pattern here, and I did a very rough sketch on some graph paper, and I'll pop that up when I edit so that you can see how I'm choosing my bead colors. You need 3 colors of beads for this, all the same size. And you can also take a screenshot of the sample earring, and so that way you'll have something to refer back to and look at. So I'm holding it still so you can do the screenshot. But essentially there's 6 rows across on this pattern and 17 rows up, and there's going to be sort of concentric rectangles inside each other. So 3 colors. There's going to be 1 color in the middle, 1 color that creates a little frame on the inside of the earring, and then 1 color that does a frame on the outside. And there's a lot of ways to finish this. I'm going to pop up another picture because I found a branded commercially made square stitch earring where they had done fringe. But I thought to really keep this beginner friendly and make it a fast project, that I would just create a little dangle. And I didn't even do anything fancy. I'll show you some options, but I literally just slipped my jump ring in between my last row of beads for that little dangle. So I'll show you how I did all of this. Let me clean up a little bit and get my needle threaded. Okay, I am going to be stringing on 10-pound Wildfire. It is this pretty kind of, well, it's simple, beige color. I was going to say kind of beige color, but it is beige. And it's a really good color match for this. Although you don't see your thread too much, but that color really disappears with this color of beads. And I have my needle threaded. I have a number 10 beading needle threaded with that thread. And I'm going to take a bead, just a random bead that I had on the side of my work table, and I'm going to feed that down to the end. You don't need a lot of thread for this, and you don't need a lot of beads for this. I'm just going to loop my needle back through to make a little tail. And at the very end, when we sew the finding onto the earring, we'll use this little tail to kind of tie off. So I used a 3-loop multi-strand connector that I use for bracelets and things like that. I used 1 for each earring, and I made some jump rings out of 22 gauge soft flex craft wire because it's nice and thin, and just so I wouldn't disturb my pattern for adding my jump ring on. And I did a little bit larger size for adding my ear wire on. But we're going to start with 17 beads of your outer frame color. So, and that's this first row right here. Let me get really close So this first row right here is 17 beads, and it's really simple. That's all we're going to do is count 17 and get them on down to the stop bead. Okay, so it looks like that with just 17 beads on. And I'm going to turn my work this way, and you'll see with every row we flip our work that way. So for me at least, and you could do it from the top if you're more comfortable, but for me, creating the square stitch going from here up always on every row works really well. So the next thing we're going to do is this second row right here. So I'm going to pick up another one of my frame color and let that drop down on the thread. And now I'm coming out the bottom here. So I'm going to go back in that same bead, but from the top down. And you'll see why this is called the square stitch. Let me pull this and show you what happens, because you're literally making a square, constantly making a square. Let me pull everything tight. And like always, whenever you start any stitch, it's wiggly at first and you almost feel like you can't do it and you've made a mess. But be patient and keep yourself lined up. I'm going to pull my stop bead down, and so there's where that bead is, and it is wonky. It's laying sideways and my thread is coming out here, but we're going to work in a square, so I need to come back over here, and I'm going to now go up through the bottom of that bead and pull that tight, and you'll see when you pull that you've created the bottom two beads. I know my fingers are in the way, but I usually put my thumb and forefinger over my work and give it a tug, and going back up through that bead in this direction makes it sit, and it will get better as you add in beads. Let me give this another little tug so you can see the square. And so see how now the thread is coming out that bead, and we're ready to add in. I know that it doesn't look like much of a square now, but these two beads are the bottom part of the square, and we're going to add one right here and go through this bead to complete. So to complete the first square, I mean. So I'm going to pick up a bead, and I'm coming out the top of this one. So I'm going to go to my next row, which is this bead right here, and put my needle through. Let me get my fingers out of the way. Put my needle through, and I'm going to pull, and when I pull, that's my first square, but it's not going to be looking good because that bead, see how the bead we just added is laying sideways? So to straighten that out, I'm going to bring my thread over here, basically across the middle of the square, and put my needle up from the bottom like that, and put my thumb and forefinger over my work, especially on the first rows because everything's a little wobbly and not secure. I'm going to give that a tug, and now it's already looking better. Get it so you can see it. So the first little square is done. It looks like that, and you can see my thread is coming out the top. So that's my pattern here. Let me show you the pattern again. So there's what we have done. We have those first ones done. So we're working on this second row right here. So we're going to start the frame, and I did that pretty turquoise color next. So I'm going to pick up that bead, pick up one of those beads, and like I said, take a screenshot of the little, I know my graph with the pattern is rough, but it gives you the count if you're losing your pattern, or you can take a screenshot of this, because we're going to do 11 beads in this turquoise color on this second row. So I'm sure that's what it is, but let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm sorry, 13 beads. We're going to do 13 beads in this frame color. And you'll be able to see when you get up here because your last two need to go back to the outer color. So we're going to do this 13 times and continue that way. I put on my turquoise bead and now I'm going to go right across from it. We're starting the bottom of the next square. Put my needle through that bead going down. And when I pull, the bead is in place, but it's sideways. So it's in place, it's where it needs to be, but it's not really sitting in line like we want. So I'm going to come with my thread. The thread just lays in between the last row and this row that we're working on. I'm going to put my needle now up through the bead we just added, like that, and pull, and that'll make it pull right in line. And it gets more and more beautiful and more secure with every single bead that you add. It's a super easy beginner stitch. So you can see my thread is coming out. It's ready for the next bead. And you can set it in there and see where you need to go next. So basically you're going to put your needle down and then up and then down and then up with every bead that you add. It's really repetitive. This is really relaxing. Okay, I'm on my last bead. I've picked up my last turquoise in this color. This is number 13. And I'm going to go up to the next row just like I've been doing. And then switch back to my frame color, my outer color, for the last two. The colors of these beads are amazing. I don't know, I don't see these colors when I am out in the bead shops and things. And it's also, I think, the way that it's curated, like the way that they put 8 beads together that coordinate 8 different colors together to make a palette. I think it's just beautiful. Okay, so it's exactly the same step. I have 2 rows done. It's looking great. It looks like that. And it will get more straight as you add in your rows. And now from here, I'm going to flip my work so that now my stop bead is at the bottom and I'll be working in this direction. So I'm coming out the bottom of my frame color, and I can look at my pattern and see my next. I'm on the 3rd row. So I'm going to pick up one of my frame beads and continue the same way, going through that bead, that last bead that I added to start another square. And then to stabilize it and get back in position for the next bead, go up. Give it a little tug, and we're in position to add another one of the frame beads. Okay, and the next bead is going to be the 3rd color. There are 2 rows of this 3rd I'm sorry, before I'm jumping ahead, one more of my opaque beads, because this is the frame. So just like that, let me pull the earring up so you can see where we are. And I think this is where the count is 11 for the middle color. Let me count it for you. But you can always refer back to my very rough little graph. I think it's 11. Yes. So now we're going to go to whatever your middle color is, and the next 11 beads are that middle kind of accent color, which is this beautiful copper lined one, is the one I chose. And continue the same way. Pick up that bead and continue making those little squares. My needle goes down with that bead, add it in, pull tight. Now my needle goes up, pull tight, pick up another one of my center beads, step up to this next row, my needle goes down, see how my bead is sitting sideways? I give it a tug, but it's still not really in position, so needle goes up. And I'm only on the 3rd row, and as you can see, it's already more stable and things are lining up. So that's where we're at, and I'm going to put 11 of those beads here, and that will put me right here, and then I'll put one of my turquoise color to continue the frame, and then 2 of my outer color. Really, really simple pattern. Okay, I'm at the top. I'm ready to flip my work again, and it's going to be start out the same with two of my outer beads for this fifth row, my outer color. One of you, and I can't remember who, but one of you named my frog that lives on my windowsill Teddy, and I've been calling him Teddy, but it sounds like he has a friend out there. Maybe Teddy has a girlfriend now. One early morning, I did finally take some pictures of him. So at the end of the video, I will show you what Teddy looks like sitting on my windowsill. He kind of drives me crazy, but he's cute. Okay, so for this row, for the fifth row, we are repeating what we did here on the second row. So it's exactly that. Pull this up again. We're repeating exactly that. So I'm going to pick up one of my opaque turquoise and add to that inner frame right there. And then this row is frame. It's that color all the way up to where it meets itself at the top. Okay, this is my last bead in this row, and we're on the last row and the last flip. So it's looking like that. I'm going to do another flip, and this last row looks exactly like the first row that we did. So just repeat this first row, which we always start with one of those terracotta colors, and put the needle through the last bead again to start off our next little square. I love this stitch, and so I kept this earring super simple, but from here, when you get to the other end, you could do long beaded fringe, you could do loops, you could do bead loops that go back through and have like a bunch of loop fringe hanging off the end, but I kept it really simple by just adding a little beaded dangle, just to make it really beginner friendly and fast. If I weren't going slow and, you know, coming up to the camera, it would probably take me about 30 minutes to do an earring. So in an hour, you know, you have, a project that takes you an hour to complete is really great. And I don't do a lot of bead weaving. I am by no means an expert at this, but I do love it. And I started maybe 15 or 20 years ago doing bead weaving projects, and I do love to do them. I find them relaxing, and I like to go from peyote stitch to square stitch, you know, I like to do like some dimensional things. And so I have a video coming up on peyote stitch rings, and I'm going to use these. Let me just pause and show you this collection, and I got from an Etsy seller that does lampwork, handmade lampwork beads. I got a bead from her, and so I think I'm going to use these to do a peyote stitch dimensional ring. Look at the color match, and then create a pendant with this lampwork bead and a dimensional ring in these colors. That's the other thing that happens to me. I love this color combination so much, and as I'm sitting here stitching and adding in my beads, I'm already designing another project with these. So let me get to the top of the last row, and I'll show you how simple it is with just a few loops to attach this multi-strand finding to the top of the earring. Okay, I'm on my last bead, exit going up, just like that. Look how cool that is. And now I can pull off my little stop bead and just, flatten everything out. And let me bring in my findings again. So I have one of these little 3-tier things, and you'll see when you line it up that you really only need to tack to the outer loops. So that's all I did, is bring my needle up through the loop and then go back down through this second bead, just like you were going to start another row. Let me come up here to the camera lens. I'm going to come back down through this second bead with my needle like that. Get this little tail out of the way. There we go. And I'm just going to do that twice, just make a little loop. There's not a lot of tugging or weight on this, so it's not necessary to do too much, but I'm just going to come back through and go to the back of my finding and come through that loop again and go back down through, just like that. And now I'm just going to go up and down to weave my way over and do the same thing on this end loop. Just following the path. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing. Run my needle through the loop and down through my, actually that was my very first bead that I put on. It's cool, you come full circle. And I'm going to come up through this loop again, just doing it twice so that it's secure. I want to get through this loop too at the same time, and then I'm going to tie this to my tail thread. So pull it in place and do the opposite. And then from here, if you wanted to put a little like GS Hypo Cement or Beadalon Makes a Good beater's glue, you could do that. I haven't found it necessary. These don't come apart. I will just take my thread zap. I'll just take my thread zap or scissors, whatever you have. Okay, and so like I said, you could really finish this off. Like if you wanted to do fringe, you could weave back down and do fringe. I thought about doing loopy fringe. I love that idea. You could also use one of those slide bar endings that slides right over here, and then you'd have another loop here. Like you can get really creative, but I decided to do something really simple with a check glass teardrop and kind of a large hole spacer bead and a check glass druck and 2 jump rings that I made out of 22 gauge wire. This one's 3mm, this one's 4mm. And I also have a piece of 26 gauge wire here. It is just a little scrap, and I am going to feed that through the top loop of this teardrop and let the teardrop go down to the middle. Draw this to the middle. Get those 2 wires at the top of my teardrop, and then I'm going to take a pair of nylon jaw pliers and put a twist in here. Okay, and my little drop just consists of one of these large hole kind of daisy spacers and my druck, cold druck. Just let that drop down, and that's my little drop. And from here I'm going to do a wire wrapped loop. I'm going to treat that twisted wire just like regular wire and do a wire wrapped loop in here. Okay, so that's my little drop, and I'm going to take the larger jump ring, take this 4mm jump ring, and go ahead and attach my ear wire. There is always links in the description box for like this ear wire assortment. It's got like, I forget, 4 or 5 different shapes of ear wires in there, and they're gold plated, and I just love them. And I will do a search for this multi-hole finding, this multi-strand finding. I've had these in my stash for a long time. It's kind of something that I keep on hand, but I'll search my past orders so that I can link that if you need that as a supply. And I'll also mention here too that if you love the Delicas, you love the seed beads, or actually any of the beads from the Beads of the Month Club, you can order single, which is the quantity that I have. But if you want more, you can actually do your monthly club as a double and get double the amount. And you save even more if you need that many seed beads. And so for here, I'm going to come to the very middle. There's 6 rows on the bottom, and I'm going to come and poke this jump ring through in between those bottom 2 Delicas. Just like that. That's why I went down to 22 gauge wire for this, so that I wouldn't disturb my pattern. And then I'm just going to feed on that little drop that we made. Like I said, I wanted this to be beginner friendly because I read every single comment. I really try to respond to everybody. It's starting to, there's so many now, it's starting to take a little bit more time than it used to. But I hear from you guys, and so many of you tell me that you've just started making jewelry, or you've just started branching out into this type of jewelry with needle and thread. And there's tons of tutorials and patterns and designs on YouTube. So I've always hesitated to jump into that because I'm not an expert, but I do love to do it, and I do know some of the stitches. And I learned way back before YouTube. I used to have to get in my car and drive to the bead shops and pay for classes and sit there and wait for the teacher to come around and show me the next step. A video is so much better for learning this. So this sweet little pair of earrings, I think they're very autumnal. Like the box was named, what was it named? Cactus Blossom. I saw this as very autumnal, and I just love this. And it's a really, really, truly a beginner friendly project. Easy to accomplish, and you have something really stunning at the end. So I will also put links to the Beads of the Month Club. Check them out. They are amazing. I am rotating all the different clubs, but I actually signed up for it for their seed beads because I don't see these colors in the marketplace, and they are so beautifully curated. I really love getting them. But then I found out that they do a great job with their Gemstones of the Month Club, and they do a great job. And they have the Delicas is what I got this month, but they also have a Rocaille seed bead of the Month Club. So check them out. It's one of the oldest monthly bead subscription boxes, and it's very high quality and a very reasonable price. So I thank you all so much for watching. Take care, everybody. See you in the next video.